Alright, so if you follow my channel, you'll know Metroid Prime 4 has been my most anticipated game for years. But after today's huge Nintendo Direct, I'm left with somewhat mixed feelings and some questions about the broader state of Metroid from Nintendo's perspective. Metroid Prime 4 showed up for barely 90 seconds, essentially an afterthought in a Direct of this size. But what surprised me the most was how strange or uneven some of the Metroid Prime 4 presentation looked, and how little fanfare or how few announcements there were for the broader Metroid franchise. Now, to be honest, it took me about half of the 90-second trailer to realize this was actually Prime 4 and not some other related Metroid marketing spin-off or experimental racing game leading up to launch or something. I enjoyed the second half of this trailer much more than the first half, so just bear with me here. In the first half, the quality of the visuals and the gameplay presented are sort of all over the place. Nintendo did upload a better quality version of this trailer after the Direct, which helps a lot and looks significantly better than what was shown originally. It's also worth noting this footage is from the Switch 2 edition. The trailer reveal itself was also odd, despite being a major release. Prime 4 was never mentioned audibly by name by any of the numerous Direct narrators. It was again just sort of thrown in here as another random game, like in past Directs. Nintendo spent about as much time talking about the new storybook pages being added to Rosalina's journal in Mario Galaxy 1 as they did on Prime 4, but I digress. We'll come back to Nintendo's lack of Metroid enthusiasm. So the trailer opens with a few slow panning shots over some interesting environments. These areas sort of reminded me of a darker or more stormy Elysia from Prime 3. Although I think this looks somewhat cool aesthetically, I was a little surprised at how rough elements of these scenes look when compared to Prime 4 environments we saw in earlier demos, such as the excellent Treehouse presentation. Again, I liked the second half of this trailer much more than the first half, so just stick with me here. Textures in the opening clips are murky or look stretched, and geometry is sort of poorly defined in my opinion. The lighting also looks a bit flat for what is supposed to be a moody or stormy scene. If we compare this to environments from the original Switch 2 edition demos, I think these visuals look downgraded or almost like a different game in spots. The trailer then takes a very unexpected turn and cuts to this close-up of what turns out to be an alien motorbike of some sort. But the texture work and even modeling here looks really rough. I would say even for a Switch 1 game compared to something like Prime Remastered, you can practically count the polygons and the murky textures are very distracting. This again looks much worse compared to a close-up shot of something from earlier trailers. When Samus puts her arm into the bike controls, this texture looks like something we'd see in Prime 3 on the Wii. The same goes for this close-up of the front of the bike, which strangely has almost no detail on it at all. I think it's strange they would choose to show so many extreme close-up shots in a trailer leading up to launch like this when it's clearly not the best way to present the visuals and the texture resolution isn't great. Anyway, all of this segues into the biggest reveal of the trailer, which is that the game features some level of open-world gameplay, at least in this desert region. Samus drives the motorbike around these large open vistas, something we've really never seen in the Metroid franchise before, while battling robot enemies of some sort. I'm sure this will be a matter of intense debate for years to come, but I personally think this just does not look that great from a visual or gameplay perspective. The environments, at least the ones we've seen, are very empty and lack detail or interesting elements. Rock formations or structures in the environments look rough. For example, in this wide open shot, there is almost nothing of interest that pulls me in to go explore, a stark contrast even from something like Breath of the Wild back during the Switch 1 launch in 2017. I realize that Prime 4 is a Switch 1 game at heart, but I think it's odd that they would pursue open-world elements in a Metroid game on such limited hardware. I'm curious to see what the Switch 1 version here looks like. And as a matter of personal taste, I also think it's odd that if you're going to add a vehicle to Metroid, this motorbike just looks so motorcycle. It just doesn't feel very grounded Metroid to me and looks out of place. I would have preferred to see something a little more weighty and mechanical, or maybe some kind of hover bike or craft that mirrors the aesthetic of her ship or something. Visuals aside, the more open gameplay shown here just didn't excite me. I'm really trying to keep an open mind about this open design choice. Maybe it'll be fun and blend together well with the more intricate Metroidvania segments as you explore the world. For now though, I think it looks too arcade style or even a little bit silly or unrefined for a Metroid game, such as when Samus turns the bike sideways and the enemies just sort of disappear into little bits. This actually reminded me more of the over-the-top third-person arcade style of Metroid Other M and not the Prime series. The generic electric guitar-sounding music also didn't help with this part of the presentation. I'm hoping these segments don't ruin the immersive, grounded feeling we experienced in the earlier entries in the franchise, and I'm curious to see what you think of all this in the comments. Now, I thought the second half of this trailer looks much better or more interesting. As soon as Samus gets off her bike in this rocky lava area, the graphics suddenly look much better, and the gameplay looks much more Metroid. There's clips of Samus fighting some interesting enemies, interacting with puzzles, exploring interesting environments, and re-engaging with classic Metroid elements, such as the return of the grapple beam. Her suit HUD and actions all look great. It's cool to finally see some new biomes after the limited earlier trailers, such as windy cliffs and snow regions, complete with their own alien Arctic wolf packs. I'm curious to see how the game connects all these different environments together, whether that's through elevators or motorbikes or your ship or a combination of all these elements. However, I still can't get over this nagging feeling that the game overall seems to have taken a slight visual downgrade. The materials overall in this trailer just look a bit less defined in many different shots, such as this morph ball segment. The metal meshwork here looks sort of oddly stretched or blurred, or not as clean or detailed as the morph ball segments we saw in earlier footage, such as that story trailer with the forest environments. Many moments in this trailer are cool conceptually, but seem to be struggling with presentation on the hardware, which was always a fear of mine with this game remaining a Switch 1 title at heart. After the Nintendo Treehouse demo earlier in the year, I was relieved to see that the Switch 2 version was getting a major glow-up when compared to the Switch 1 version, but now that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case here, or at least not consistently throughout the experience to the same extent. So overall, I would say half of this trailer left me excited and felt like a continuation of earlier reveals and games in the series, and half of it felt kind of out of left field with questionable visuals and sort of rough-looking gameplay. I'm still hyped for the game overall though. However, I am also confused why Nintendo didn't include another minute or two of gameplay or insights into what the overall flow of the game looks like. Hopefully, we'll see a dedicated presentation closer to launch, but they made no mention of that. And that segues into my biggest issue with this presentation, which was the mediocre support from Nintendo. Aside from the Prime 4 trailer just sort of being thrown into the middle of this huge direct without any focus or fanfare, Nintendo clearly prioritized and spent significantly more time on other games. For example, Kirby's Air Ride received more time than Prime 4, even though it already had a separate 45-minute direct, and they announced a second dedicated direct for that on the way. Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, Virtual Boy, a Donkey Kong Bonanza expansion, the Switch 2 version of Mario Wonder, all of these received more time than Prime 4, even though they're just re-releases or expansions of existing games. There were many new games, re-releases, ports, or even minor indie games that received more time during the Direct than Prime 4. Why are Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 being re-released leading up to the Mario Galaxy movie, but Prime 2 and 3 are apparently not being re-released leading up to Prime 4? This is even stranger when you consider the art book for Prime 1 through 3 is still supposedly coming on October 28th, yet there's no way to even play two of the games it features except on old hardware or emulators. Or why is Mario Wonder getting a Switch 2 edition for the 40th anniversary, but Prime 1 Remastered or even Metroid Dread are not getting Switch 2 updates, even just to boost the resolution or frame rate to be in line with Prime 4? The main reason I bring all this up is because I want Prime 4 to do well so we continue to receive more entries, but Nintendo seems to only be half-heartedly marketing or hyping this game and the franchise. The hopeful viewpoint here would be that a deeper trailer is coming, and since it's the last big game of the year, they are waiting to reveal more. The pessimistic view would be that Nintendo is continuing to deprioritize Metroid compared to other franchises, or that based on this recent trailer, there may be some concerns with the quality secretly not being quite where they want it to be, so they aren't highlighting it as much. So anyways, I thought half of this trailer looked really cool, and the other half left me with all kinds of questions and concerns. I'm still hyped for Prime 4 overall, but I'm wondering what the final experience will look like, and I'm confused why Nintendo seems so reluctant to support and focus more on the wider franchise. Please hit those subscribe and like buttons to further support Prime 4 content, and I'm curious to hear what you think, so leave a comment and let's discuss.